Welcome back to the Spiritually Curious Therapist. Have you ever noticed how differently you feel when you're standing in the middle of a forest? Somehow the noise quiets, your shoulders soften, you breathe a little bit deeper, and for just a moment you remember something about yourself that gets lost in the busyness of everyday life. When I sat down with today's guest, Wren Morrow, I thought we were going to have a conversation about photography, nervous system regulation, and the healing power of nature. Instead, we found ourselves exploring freedom, shame, identity, and what it means to reclaim ourselves after years of living by someone else's story. What surprised me most about this conversation was realizing that it wasn't really about photography at all. It was about remembering who we are. Wren's photographs may capture beautiful moments, but as you'll hear in this conversation, they're really something much deeper. They're reminders, keys that unlock the memory of an experience where, if only for a moment, we feel fully alive, fully embodied, and completely ourselves. I have a feeling this conversation will invite you to remember something too. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Spiritually Curious Therapist, where science, spirit, and the self come together in the art of healing. I'm Jody Silverman, psychotherapist, Reiki master, and fellow seeker. Here we explore how presence, compassion, and nervous system wisdom helps us reconnect with the heart, the body, and the soul. Hello. Today we have with us Wren Morrow, and you are in for a treat. Wren is an outdoor boudoir and erotic adventure photographer based in the Pacific Northwest. She guides couples and individuals through deeply embodied experiences in wild places, and she is here to talk about nervous system regulation, and just being out there in the wild, experiencing things in all different ways. Welcome to the podcast, Wren.
Thank you so much, Jody. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. Let's just start with your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you into this work.
Wow, it has definitely been a journey. I was born and raised in the South in purity culture, raised Christian, was very involved in the church, even into young adulthood. I know a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I had to go to church when I was a kid. I said, no, I ended up marrying someone in the church, started working for the church, was very involved. And then at a certain point, just ended up walking away from all of that, had felt so constrained and constricted by religion, put it all on pause, broke free, just started, got a divorce, went to Italy, came back, moved to the West Coast on a whim almost to a town I had never been to, started to chase my life, chase what I wanted, regardless of anyone else's opinion. I'm recognizing I'm the only one who had to live with my choices. And then through that, just life came and met me. The universe came and bolstered me through this entire destruction of my old life and then launch into something new. And from that came like someone believing in me to be a photographer. I had always dabbled a little bit and loved photography, but somebody bought me my first camera. I started living in a van and spending a ton of time outdoors. And all of this really just culminated into the perfect storm of being able to see how effortlessly it is to feel at ease in nature, that there's something about shame that just unravels when you're just an animal body in an animal setting. And did a lot of just my own spending lots of time outside and then just wanting to invite other people into that. And so it just really kind of snowballed into this line of work that was originally just for individuals and then has blossomed into something where I love to do it with couples as well. So that's the very short version of that.
That is quite a story and really speaks to when you follow your path, like the next step will unfold and trusting that's going to happen. Because I imagine doing what you did took not only took a lot of courage, but a lot of trust that the universe was going to support you in whatever was coming next.
Definitely. I think that I look back on that time and it was a boldness. At that time, my mantra was fate loves the fearless. And you just have to jump without looking. You just can't hold back. You can't think about it. You just have to go, and all of the details will work themselves out. It's almost like you're just going so fast and so, that you don't even have time to work out the details. And when you move at that speed, the details just work themselves out. It's so wild. And I think now at this point in my life, I can feel how I have let fear creep in sometimes, hold me back in some ways. And even telling that story or reliving this moment is this calling to my own spirit of, don't you remember? You don't have to have it figured out. You just have to know what you want.
Wow. I love that statement of fate loves the fearless, right?
Mhm.
That's such a
Yeah.
that is such a powerful mantra to keep bringing into your, I guess, the journey, right? Because each
Mhm.
step required you to have faith that the next step was going to unfold.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it was almost like you get to a place where it's not even like being brave anymore. It's like you just have to keep going. It's not a matter of, oh, is this working or whatever. It's like it has to work. It has to, there is no other option but for this to work because it is what I am doing. And so it must work. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly how it's going to work, if it's going to work smoothly or roughly, if it's going to work, but it will work because it must, because it is the only option, because it is what I am doing. And it's like there's no back doors, there's no side angle. What about what it's no, I left Tennessee and I left it all behind. I bought a car, sold off everything that didn't fit in the car, and I moved west. I went to a town I had never even been to, and to work at a place I'd never been. It was just like this thing of I don't know how it will work, but I know that it will because it must.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we can rewind that a little bit because even as I'm listening to you and I'm hearing the energy behind how important it was for you to believe, I'm wondering, when you were back in Tennessee, was there a moment when you just knew that you couldn't stay any longer?
Yes. Yes. And I think that is, as these things often do, there was what in storytelling it's called the inciting incident,
Mhm.
the moment where something happens and now it is changed. Now we can no longer go back. So you must go forward. And I got a divorce. I had also walked away from my faith pretty much at the same time. And so I just was living my life like there were no rules because all of my rules were based in spiritual dogma or religious dogma rather. And so I suddenly acted like there were no consequences to life. I get a divorce and it's like my life is a blank canvas. And I say at that time, the only mediums I had to work with were pain and chaos. And so I just did whatever I needed to do or did whatever I wanted to do, which also was really an important part of the story. I had spent so long being a good Christian woman, trained to it's not about what I want, it's what God wants, it's what my husband wants. And so just being in that submissive role, I had been that way for so long that to radically do whatever the fuck I wanted was a really important step. However, I did not consider other people at all. I
Mm.
was selfish. I was chaotic. I was cruel. I acted like no one else mattered. And so I had, and not with my husband, but I started dating somebody who had a woman. So I was the affairee or whatever. I was the other woman. I would ghost my friends, like people who were really cared for me. I just wouldn't show up for them. Just, oh, whatever. Just acted like nobody else mattered. And at a certain point, I just looked and I was like, oh my goodness, everything that I've touched, every person that I have touched in these past 4 months, I have just hurt. I have just used and abused every single person that I have come into contact with. And I realized you don't have to be a good person because of the fact that there's a God and you'll go to hell. You have to be a good person because you have to live with everything that you do. And suddenly I was having to live with all of the pain and the discomfort and the like people. It came out that I had been having this affair and they had broken up. So then he and I were like openly dating, but then everyone thought we were just blazingly having this affair. And I would go in places and people would give us the stank eye and just really rude, all this. And I am suddenly looking at all this. And then he breaks up with me to get back together with her. And I was just like, this whole situation has gotten so out of hand. It's like, my life is nothing but drama with boys, my ex-husband, this guy, there's other people. It just, my whole life is just consumed with this drama. My friends hate me because I didn't show up for them when they needed me after they've done so much for me, like all of these things. And so I just was like, I have to leave this behind because I know I want to be different. I just learned a ton. I didn't know you had to care about other people. And that's such a crazy thing to
Mm.
think, but I just really didn't. I was 25 years old and really hadn't understood that. And so then I was like, okay, moving forward, I'm gonna be something different, but sometimes you can't move forward in a place where you've been something else. People hold a vision of you. And so yes, there was just a moment where I was like, okay, we're starting fresh for real this time, and we're going to do it intentionally, and we're going to do it with people who don't know that we've been anything else.
I'm wondering at that time, what did that feel like in your body?
When I left or when I was in Chattanooga,
When you made the decision to go?
when I made the decision to go, it felt thrilling and aligned because at the time I was like, I think I want to move to the West Coast. And then as soon as I said that, there were all these synchronicities started to come up. My
Yeah.
sister was like, oh, my my old substitute teacher actually lives in that place that you were talking about moving to. And I was like, what? And then I reached out to some people who I had waited tables like 2 years earlier and was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I was your waitress. And do you think you could help me with a place to live or a job? And that was like on April 4th. By April 7th, I had a job and a place to live lined up. So it was like, and then by April 27th, I had bought a car and sold everything that didn't fit into it. And so I think it was like, it felt exciting, not in the scary way. I know that fear and excitement live in the nervous system almost the same.
Yeah.
It felt like, I think that it was like the combination of the excitement and the support that
Mm.
made it feel like, okay, this is real. It's not just, okay, I'm gonna fling myself and like, we'll see what happens. It was that, but it was also like, I have something to catch me when I land. So it's not just a full fling. And so there was something about that like dichotomy or the like tension between feeling really bold and brave, but also feeling really supported, that those two things together made it feel doable.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that. Sometimes we talk about like, how do we know the difference between a choice that we're making out of fear versus a choice that we're making because our intuition is saying that's the choice that we should make. And a lot of
Mhm.
people get them confused. And like
Mhm.
you said, and you're absolutely right, like that feeling of excitement that we get like in our heart center is the same exact feeling as fear and anxiety. It's
Mhm.
the lens through which we're viewing it that makes the
Mhm.
difference in terms of what it actually is. And so oftentimes we can get them confused. And I've talked about with other folks on the podcast when we're trying to differentiate between fear motivating us versus intuition motivating us. Fear feels oftentimes feels chaotic and there's some urgency behind it, whereas intuition feels much quieter, more supported, more like it's meant to be. Is that what you experienced?
I mean, I think that there's something to be said for the fact that, like, when you make a choice, you make a choice. And it doesn't really matter the motivation behind it. What matters more than the motivation is your decisiveness. You can, I knew I was running. I was absolutely running. I had fucking blown up my life and my reputation. And I lived in a tiny town. I had to go. And I was running. But there was something that was that like how do we say is we act like we want to only ever be making decisions out of the best motivation possible or whatever. And I'm like, man, if you put your hand on a hot stove, wow, you are going to move and you are going to move quickly and you're going to move because of pain. That's not, oh, that's such a grounded motivation. No, that's pain.
Mhm.
Pain and it makes you move and it makes you move quickly, decisively. And the thing is that that decisiveness is so potent and will cut through anything. And so it's had I run and acted like I wasn't running, now that probably would have been a problem. But I moved and I moved quickly and I moved from pain. And then along my journey, I let that fucking pain catch up with me. And I faced the mirror of myself and I reckoned with how I had been behaving and then held a vision for how I was going to be moving forward. And whether it's intuition or fear, I don't know. I feel like just staying moving to an extent, reflecting as well. It's like this balance, right? It's like we move, we make decisions. Okay, now we stop, we reflect, make sure we know, like, because if I stayed in Tennessee or if I moved out west, either way, I needed to face the music of what I had been doing. I just chose an opportunity where I could face it and then just face it with myself and not have to face it with every single person I had ever impacted
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that was too heavy of a dose and that wasn't going to be conducive to my growth. Or who knows, maybe it would have been. Who maybe I would have done the exact same thing. And that's the other thing is not getting so wrapped up in why we're doing the things that we do. Not that's not important, but the growth that you're going to experience, I don't think that we can avoid it. I think that it is happening whether we want it to or not, and our decisions only change our view of what happened. Anyway, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but it's like the route our soul decided to take, in my opinion, was determined. The route, as far as not the details, but the growth that will
Mhm.
happen, was like predetermined, I think, in a way. And so our decisions are mostly just choosing like how we experience them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, I think what you're talking about here is making a decisive choice in the face of, it sounds like you were like in the midst of a dark night of the soul, like what we call a tower moment in the
Mhm.
tarot card world, where I don't know if you know that card with the tower.
I I'm a Scorpio. That is my card.
Yeah. So it was certainly a tower moment and change needed to happen. And it sounds like you saw change as you're removing yourself from the environment so that you could get a clearer picture of who you were in the world. Because when you grow up in a small town, especially in a church, in the religious dogma, your sense of self is it tends to be a reflection of what that community is putting upon you. And so it's really hard to get clear about things when you're in that. And
Mhm.
so something about your instinct, your soul, your journey, your purpose pulled you, it sounds pulled you out of that and sent you in a completely different direction. And
Totally.
you found nature and you found photography and you found healing, which is a beautiful thing. So let's talk a little bit about that and your
Yeah.
time in the woods and in nature. What was that like for you?
Oh man, it's just so magical. This is such a blissful era for me. I lived in a van with my musician lover who just always was seeking out the quietest spots for us and just playing flamenco guitar constant. It was such a soothing time in my life. And to he was very supportive of me and of my journey and helping me in so many ways, just to get back up and try again, to help refine my artistry. He was, and then as I am spending all this time naked and outdoors and just being allowed to exist without all of the societal expectations of what a body should be and how a body should look and all these things. It was just like I just unraveled out here and with him, and then it just started to be a thing that I wanted to offer, and it was the thing I was embodying, and so it was the thing that it became my medicine, and boudoir photography became the place I was able to offer it. But it was so much more than that, and I knew it was more than that, and my approach was always to create, is experience based, to offer this beautiful thing that would remind people of who they were and to be witnessed and all of this stuff. And then from that place, the photos would just be these keys to unlock the memory of that experience.
So that's so beautiful. I love the idea of having the experience and then having photos to like just remind your body of what that was like. I'm curious, and you answered this, but why nature opposed to in a studio somewhere?
Yeah, I think that there is something that feels so correct about being an animal body in an animal environment. There's something that just feels, I don't know, there's an energetic resonance. You just look at the trees and the rocks, and they're all perfectly imperfect. And there's something about you that is perfectly imperfect, and you can see the way that the different twists and turns and bulges and breaks and things that are reflected in nature are just the story of its growth, that are just the reflection of its individual story, that I feel like mirrors back to you that your body, that your growths and stretches and breaks and bumps and bruises and twists and turns and the hunched shoulders or the, so like I have these little hunch, like overly done traps, and this man, there was too much weight put on my little shoulders all at once, and so I grew this like improper holding habit because I just had to survive and I had to grow very quickly. And so I just think that we see ourselves in that and we see it as beautiful, and then it's easier to see ourselves as beautiful. But I'm so curious what your thoughts are on like why nature is an easier place to exist inside the body.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that, and I will come back to that in a moment. But I just want to name something that came up for me as you were talking, because you were talking about nature, being in nature and having nature mirror being perfectly imperfect back to us in terms of like all of just everything, the twists and the turns and the bumps and the bruises and all the things. And it made me think about what I said just a few minutes earlier about being in a small town and a religious setting where it was the context of the religion and the town mirroring who
Mhm.
you were back to you and the contrast between those two things.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes, it was an entirely different experience. What was being mirrored back to me, it was just, and it's our own self too. We're evolved, we're projecting what we think that they're saying back on us, and then we're seeing it back, or we're resonating at the frequency of shame and disgust at our behavior. And so the people who view us in a disgusted way are showing up to in our doorsteps or whatever. But I heard recently about a study that they did of they had a makeup artist come and paint burn gross stuff on someone's face, like a movie makeup artist, where they had birth different kind of messed up face things, and they showed the people what they looked like. And then at the last minute before they walked out the door, the makeup artist fixed it, removed it, but the person thought that they left the house with this disfiguration. And then they were supposed to tell about their experience during the day. And every single person that came back was like, wow, people were looking at me so weird. I was getting all these strange looks. I was getting all these disgusted looks at myself. And actually, they hadn't had that disfiguration at all. They literally thought that they had it and moved through the world that way and then saw it back. So it is like there's lots of things working in tandem together, but I think that there's something really simple about being mirrored back by a tree that it's a lot harder to project all of your human bullshit onto a tree. They can't reflect back those micro expressions and those little things that we're queuing for and scanning for constantly to reinforce whatever narrative we've got running the loudest in our brain. The tree is just unable to participate with the bullshit of all of that and just is, I guess, it's so intense to have somebody looking at you with a camera. Most people, even with their clothes on, even on a Sunday afternoon eating barbecue with the fam, get squirmy in front of a camera. And to have the backdrop be this, it was just my backup here.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm asking Mother Nature to help co-hold this space where this client will be able to just be, and encouraging them to take in the environment and look around and let me just fade into the background.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. First of all, I think that study that you referenced is fascinating and really speaks to the way that what we're looking for, we will actually see and interpret through our beliefs. So I just want to highlight that because I think that's really important for us just to remember in terms of mindset, no matter what. And to respond to your question, which I think you already did a wonderful job of answering in terms of why nature can be so much more regulating than anywhere else in particular. There's a reason why people nature bathe. There's a lot of scientific reasons why, and I can't necessarily speak to all of those in terms of what nature does for us. But I do know that I think the universe is self-organizing and we
Mhm.
sit in nature all the time. And
Mhm.
we are of nature, we are of this earth. We are not separate from that. And as you so eloquently said, when we are in that space and we are not having to try to interpret, we can rely on the fact that nature takes care of itself. We don't have to take care of it. The vibration, so from an energy perspective, it's a very regulating space to be in just energetically because the vibration is pure until we go in and mess it up. But that's a whole other conversation.
Mm.
So I think that there's so much to for us to understand and learn about how Mother Earth really takes care of us and why it's so important to do the things that we do in order to save her, and that being in nature is regulating because we are nature. When we allow ourselves to be in that space and be in that vibration and just kind of melt into that frequency, it feels like we're being held in so many ways. And all of the sounds of nature, that's the other thing. The sounds, the colors, like from a sensory perspective, they all kind of line up. They all feel familiar and safe, like from a soul perspective. And so there's a certain level of safety that I think our nervous system feels in a nature setting versus, let's say, in a city or in a building or someplace that's familiar. So it's like more of my like spiritual twist. I know there's like scientific reasons why
Mhm.
that I can't necessarily eloquently speak to, but those are my thoughts. And we always talk about when we're working with people around nervous system regulation, how important it is to spend time in nature, to take your shoes off and feel the ground underneath you, because that's how we feel connected to who we truly are. And you stumbled upon that and was really able to fully
Mhm.
take that in, which is such a beautiful thing. And I just love the way you talk about how what it mirrors back in terms of like just pure essence versus perhaps where you came from, where there was shame and rules and all the things that did not necessarily align.
And we're all being subjugated to that constantly,
Mhm.
where we're looking at all these buildings that are in straight lines, and
Yep.
there's so much that feels robotic and contrived. And there is such a perfection to an old growth forest that has had millennia to understand its balance. It's really honestly quite rare to come across a place that didn't experience massive deforestation, and yet it is working its way back. And that's the thing. It's like, even you said that we messed it up, and I just think that, like, it just depends on how big of a time you're focusing on. One little, yes, we did definitely shift things a lot. And I am just so curious of how it all pans out. I really am believing in the perfection of everything all the time. And even in my, like I said, my chaos moment directly after my divorce, where I was definitely what I would have considered a problem. But that was like how I gained the awareness to make a shift. And so I think the collective consciousness that we share is doing that. And I think that we are perhaps in a moment that is really revealing in a lot of ways. And it's revealing a lot of gnarliness, and it's also revealing a lot of potential. And it's where with Mother Nature as she's on her journey of understanding herself. And we are an extension of her, but the Earth is on its cosmic journey of understanding itself better. And there's the bang happened, and we're all propelling ourselves through time and space, and there's planets that have been doing it for way longer, and the Earth is just on its little journey, moving, expanding, going further and further out. And the further on this thing it goes, the more it's going to learn, the more it's setting its rules. I'm like, if we are Earth, just what seems to be taught in the headlines is talking about boundaries. And it does seem like Earth has maybe not had some very strict boundaries on what humans are allowed to have from her. And maybe in the same way, I'm learning how to say, actually, I see what you're doing here and I really love you, but also that doesn't feel reciprocal to me. I think I'm gonna have to not engage with that. I just wonder how that's gonna pan out in a more cosmic way. And I don't know. I'm so fascinated by the whole thing.
I love where you're going with that. I've never thought about it from that perspective, and you really kind of zoomed out, which absolutely aligns in so many ways because we are not separate, right? Like in
Mm,
every experience we are having, the collective is having, and the collective is includes Earth and the universe, and who knows how far out it goes. But so to pan all the way out and think about Earth kind of being on this journey and setting back. Okay, so now you got something else that has my mind going.
yeah, good.
We'll have to circle back around to that at another time. But I want to come back for a moment because you said something I think that's really important, and that is through this process, finding yourself in nature, doing this work, it sounds like it really became a corrective experience for you, like a way of reclaiming who you are after
Mhm.
having the life you had before, and then offering that to other people as a way
Mhm.
of having an experience that maybe propels them in a different direction or gives them the confidence or helps them to see themselves in a different way. Can you think of a moment where someone really truly saw themselves differently through your work?
Yeah, yes, every time. Like there's
Okay,
so much.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. And sometimes it was there's been recent times even that people saw themselves not as flattering as they wanted to. There's a real scope of what can happen. You know, so many women for so long, it went, oh my God, I can't believe I look like that. I look so good. Ah! And then I did some photo shoots recently where I had some people, oh, I think that I'm really beautiful and I don't, or I just don't look at myself. I don't worry about that. And then these photos were confronting for me because I actually had to face my body in a way that I hadn't before. So I think that there's lots of, yeah, the answer is yes, and not, I wouldn't say is 100% in this way that is like what we quintessentially consider as positive. Sometimes it can be this opportunity to really grapple with the importance that we put on the physical form.
Yeah, I imagine not only through the experience of being in nature and being fully embodied and what that's, but also whatever the same as that study, that experiment that you were talking
Mhm.
about, the projections that we put on our own selves and what we see when we look at those pictures. And I would just be curious, I don't know, I'm just thinking about it, the people who may not see that those pictures in as much of a positive light, what is the filter through which they are looking at those pictures versus somebody who might see the pictures and be blown away in a more positive way.
Totally. It was really interesting. So I was flown to Australia to photograph this women's event. And so I did miniature sessions, which I don't normally do. I normally do take hours and hours, like just to make sure everybody had a chance to feel comfortable and get into themselves and into their body and really anchor it into that experience. But this was at a festival and there were lots of women. And so we did these like miniature shoots. And I don't know if that's like part of what it was or if there's also an aspect of these women were all Australian. And so I don't know if there's like an element of just like a cultural difference between America, because in America, we are a lot more free than many people are. We feel a lot more freedom to be whatever the fuck we are. And it's something that a lot of Americans don't even realize how much we do, and to the point where we seem obnoxious in other countries or but we had a viewing party afterwards where all the women got together and we reviewed the footage and we went through all the candidates, and then most of the women allowed me to share their individual portraits like for everyone. And it was honestly like this very collective healing moment where some people were like, there's one girl in particular, it was like, "Ah, my neck, when I laugh, it just becomes my neck and my chin just gets all so strange. And that's all I can see in this photo." And I was like, literally, the whole room is like, girl, all we see is your radiant joy. That is all we see. We see this big smile. Nobody Not a single person clocked her neck, and her neck was the only thing she could see in the photo. And so there is, and she was like, even my friends talk about it. Why does your neck always do that weird thing in photos? And it is this funny thing of, even if you think about, oh, my neck always does that thing in the photos, you're training your body to do that thing. I tell people all the time, or specifically, okay, so there's this one girl I photographed also in Australia, and this one was more of this little in-home shoot. And the first thing, we sit down to discuss what we're going to do that day. The first thing out of her mouth is, I'm always so awkward in photos. I said, wow, I would love to reset the stage here, because that's definitely not where we want to start. Let's not start with, I always look so awkward in photos, because the brain is an information gatherer to support whatever the fuck it is you believe. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. So you have so much control over this thing, and we are letting it work so hard against us, and it is being hijacked by our consensual engagement with Instagram to be trained and all these things, our programs and whatever. Okay, conspiracy theorists on the loose. No, but I'm just, it is here to give you as much supporting evidence as you need to believe whatever it is that you want to believe. And so I was like, could we just start by posing it as a question of, what if this ends up being the most comfortable I've ever felt in front of a camera? Because the other thing about it is that, because of the fact that it is an information gathering device or program organ, I don't know, operating system. A lot of our or affirmation and stuff or whatever is really about being like, I am this, and that is true. But there's an in between phase where that is a lot more potent, because the other thing is that if you're so aggressive with it, I am comfortable in front of a camera. Now your brain will also be like, well, I don't know if that's entirely true. I have a lot of evidence to support the fact that you haven't actually been that. And because we're combating an active belief. And so if you pose it as a question, the brain loves a question. It's, ooh, okay, wait, let me search for that data. And so if we say, what if this ends up being the most comfortable I've ever been in front of a camera? The brain will start to gather some data. What if this is the most comfortable I've ever been in front of the camera? I guess I would probably just feel really comfortable. I guess I'd be super surprised. I guess I'd be delighted. I guess maybe I wouldn't be overthinking it so much. I guess and you can, this thing, we got to work with it. We can't work against it. I'm tapping on my head for those of us who are listening, but we got to work with it. And yeah, I think that I have gone so far off the trail. I do not remember where we started for.
You're actually right on. What I'm going to do is, because we do have to end, I'm going to rein us back in. Okay, so I'm
Thank
just
you.
going to I'm just going to respond to that. No, because I think what you just offered is incredibly important, because you're 100% right. It's called predictive processing, and our brain is constantly predicting what's going to happen based on our past experiences and what it has reference to. And so if we've had past experiences and we are thinking that we are awkward in front of a camera, our brain is going to predict that's going to happen, and then it's going to happen. And I
Mhm.
love your invitation to pose a question in response to that, because that just opens things wide up. So I hope everyone who's listening can take that piece for sure away with them. Pose it as a question. What if this is the time I'm actually really comfortable in front of a camera, and I'm absolutely delighted by not only my experience, but how these photos are going to turn out. And what a wonderful gift you can give to yourself.
Or anytime you find yourself in front of a camera, it doesn't have to be in front of a professional one. It can be anytime you're struggling with anything you're trying to pull into your life, any belief system that you're trying to combat. It's so much easier to say it as a question rather than to directly contradict something that you've been thinking for quite some time.
I love that. I love that. So, Ren, I'm just going to ask you real quick before we end, because I always ask everybody, is there anything that we did not talk about that you would really like the audience to know?
No, I don't, nothing in particular. I just go spend more time outside.
Go spend more time outside. I love it. And I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes so people can go to your website. You have lots of pictures up there of your work. And is there anywhere else that people could find you? Do you have Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, I have Instagram. It's underscore Wren Morrow, WRENMORROW, like tomorrow. And then it's wrenmorrow.com. So
Perfect.
everything's just by my name.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Ren.
Thank you, Jody.